attended to. So many issues at stake, and so many things on the table that we have to stand up and fight for. So it was just really beautiful to see, across the spectrum, so many people that came out from all different types of, walks of life and different religions, different backgrounds, different ages and genders and ethnicities and religious backgrounds all came together to stand in the name for justice and equality. And so it was just a great day to me. I was very honored to be a part of, those that put this together. And we had, we did a lot of work, got a lot of work done, but still have a lot of work to accomplish. So give yourselves a hand if you came to Washington, D.C. I know that we may feel a little weary, but I know that the work that we're doing is tremendous and important, and it's going to pay off. We just got to stay on it and stay involved, stay committed, because we can make this happen. So want to just say that and welcome all of you. I'm going to bring up Sister Patrice Perry. I'm sorry, my name is Dominique Sharpton, and I'm the Vice Chairperson for National Action Network's Youth Huddle. And I'm going to bring up Sister Patrice Perry, one of our advisors now, to open us up in prayer and scripture.
Thank you, Dominique. Good evening, Huddle family. Tonight's scripture is Psalms 147, verses 1 through 12. How good is it to sing praises to our God? How pleasant and fitting to praise him. The Lord builds up Jerusalem. He gathers the exiles of Israel. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He determines the number of the stars and calls them each by name. Great is our Lord and mighty in power. His understanding has no limit. The Lord sustains the humble, but cast the wicked to the ground. Sing to the Lord with grateful praise. Make music to our God on the harp. He covers the sky with clouds. He supplies the earth with rain and makes grass grow on the hills. He provides food for the cattle and for the young ravens when they call. His pleasure is not in the strength of the horse, nor his delight in the legs of the warrior. The Lord delights in those who fear him, who puts their hope in his unfailing love. Extol the Lord, Jerusalem. Praise your God. Tonight, right before we come into prayer, we're going to pray for, we just found out that 4 people were found dead in a Manhattan home on 86th Street. 2 of them were kids, 2 of them were adults. It's still an investigation going on. We had the random shooting in Jacksonville. We had the shooting in Jersey. The devil is a liar, so we're going to cast him out. Let us pray. Most gracious and wise God, we come today first to tell you thank you for this day, that many people had their clothes set out and the day never happened. God, we thank you for being with National Action Network as we traveled all around the country to Washington, D.C. on Saturday. God, thank you for covering us and covering our leader and founder. Thank you, God, for covering all of the highways as we travel to and fro. God, we thank you tonight for the NAN Youth Huddle, God. 9 years, and you're still God. You're still moving. You're still healing. You're still restoring. God, thank you. Thank you for this house of justice, that when we come in, we leave out feeling uplifted. Despite everything that's going on in this world, God, we still can call on you. We still know that you are here, you're there, you're everywhere, because you are God, you are sovereign. We know that you can do anything but fail. So God, we ask you to bless everyone on their way here tonight. God, we ask you to bless the families that got the news of their loved ones being found dead tonight, God. We ask you to give them strength and hold them up. It's not easy when the news cameras go off and you just have to talk to you. But God, give them the strength that they need. God, we ask you to bless the food in the hands that prepared it. This we ask in nothing but your matchless name, with every knee must bow and every tongue must confess. God, all of your children said, amen.
Great. Thank you, Patrice. Okay, now we're going to have our founder and chair report from Sister Ashley Sharpton. No? Okay. Black History Fact of the Day. Giselle, come on and give us our Black History Fact of the Day.
Good evening, everybody. So today, our Black History Fact is not really, it is a history fact, I would say, because on August 26th, we made history, and we're gonna continue to make history, but this is a very current Black History Fact from Martin Luther King III, and this was just said today at 10 o'clock a.m., August 28th. So let's get into it. MLK III, what's even more challenging today than 60 years ago? After a summer of discontent and disaffection, we returned to the nation's capital Saturday to mark 60 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led the March on Washington. We returned with a clear demand and unified call. It's time to realize the dream. It's time to realize that, in more ways than we can count, the challenges facing marginalized communities, particularly Black and brown Americans, are even more prevalent than they were 6 decades ago. We must be honest with ourselves that America has become a place where hate and intolerance from extremists have been given rise to radical agendas at every level of government, both to harm and diminish the voices of certain segments of the population. In many instances, the U.S. Supreme Court has become the vehicle for this country turning back to the clock on years of progress. Today, our daughter, the only grandchild of Dr. King, like all women, has fewer rights than the day she was born 15 years ago. We have been told that women cannot have control of their own bodies. We have been told that Black and brown Americans do not deserve to attend college as much as legacy students and athletes. We have been told that there is nothing we can do, but there is. 60 years ago, a group of committed Americans set out to march in Washington, D.C. because they had not seen the progress of our movement deserved. Among their demands was the passage of the Voting Rights Act, which would become law 2 years later. Today, the Voting Rights Act is a shell of itself, torn apart by the Supreme Court and ignored by right-wing state legislators. We followed the marchers' lead 60 years later because their work is not complete. The crown jewel of the civil rights movement, the Voting Rights Act, has been shredded. The jobs and freedom they marched for have not been attained, and the peace, justice, and equity at the center of their movement are still absent from many of our laws. We march for a government that is just, a world that is equal, and a movement that is returning. While many remember the March on Washington as a turning point in the movement for civil rights, fewer know it by its full name and intention. It was the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. Central to the demands of the organizers was the right to a good job, a fair wage, and equal economic opportunity for all. Those demands have not been met in the 6 decades since. In 1963, when the organizers of the first March on Washington came to D.C., the Black home ownership rate trailed white Americans by 27%. Today, that number has increased to 30%. The racial wealth gap then was 121,000. Today, it is 161,000. Black Americans still earn less for the same work than white Americans. They are still less likely to receive a fair mortgage or a small business loan. The March on Washington set out to change those disparities. Today, they still exist. We are far from realizing the dream and building an equitable country, but there is hope. In 1963, that hope was held by the hundreds of thousands who attended the march. That is why it is crucial that we hold the momentum of this movement. It was crucial that we return to the nation's capital in force and demonstrate to our leaders that this movement is still keeping the hope of 1963 alive. We returned to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial for the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, but we were not commemorating the historic moment. We are continuing the work of the movement and demanding the progress we deserve. Our voices matter, and we will use them louder than ever before. The words of MLK III. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. Now we'll have our founder and chair of our NAN Youth Huddle come at this time. I have to say she was one of our dynamic, tremendous speakers who addressed the stage at the Lincoln Memorial. I'm so pleased and honored to bring to y'all now Sister Ashley Sharpton.
Thank you, Domino. Thank you, everyone. Happy Huddle Monday. So my remarks will be brief. There are no action alerts because they're all about the March on Washington, the 2023 March on Washington. And tonight's theme is about the March on Washington because today, as Giselle mentioned, today is August 28th. And August 28th, 60 years ago, they were all out there basically doing what we did 2 days ago, rallying the cry for justice, for equity, for freedom, for our generation. And I was very, very proud of basically National Action Network's leadership, of course, our leader, Reverend Al Sharpton, but basically all of the leadership from around the nation. It was basically example just to see how I don't know, I don't want to get technical because I know it's a whole program, but to see people from Florida, to see people from different parts, different corners of the world, and getting there every way they could get there, whether it was by a bus, whether it was by a plane, however way they needed to get there. And yes, we have come so far from where we started, but the fact that people still felt there was an urgency and a need to go and made sure that they were there, I thought that was, I just thought it was exemplary, and it gave me faith and it gave me hope for the future, but definitely to see the young leadership. I must, first of all, Falivi Dosa, our own Falivi Dosa and Usman Diallo, I must clap. I want everyone to stand up. I know they're watching. We have to stand up and salute the leadership of our youth leaders. So for those who don't know them, most of you know them, which is why you already knew what to do. They started here at Youth Huddle, but they also are from Harlem. They are some of the most active young people that we ever have met since we first met them, since the pandemic. And their commitment to their role here, they are not paid a lot, so I don't want anybody to say, oh, they were paid. They're not paid a lot. Their time and commitment, they are full-time college students in college, have work to do, trying to make sure they get to pay for school. But they made sure that this is something that they committed to, that responsibility of organizing for this March on Washington. And it was not just local. They made sure that they organized. There was over 32 schools, not just HBCUs, but from around the nation. Usman Diallo, I must say specifically, made sure that those buses, he made sure that they had buses, and he made sure that the locations, everything was communicated. We had weekly calls, but that's what it's about. It's about leadership. And from the top down, we learned that from Reverend Sharpton. It's not just about who you see from the front. It's the entire ship has to be moving in order for us to have a movement. And I was just proud of them for stepping up to the plate and understanding it's not just about speaking. It's about making sure only reason that we were at the mic, some of us were at the mic, is because of our organizing efforts and what we do on the ground every day. And a lot of the people that you saw that you don't know their names, but you might know the organizations, they do the work every day. NCNW, different people that you probably have never heard of, but they do different work, and this work is not singular. It's plural. So in order for us to get to the goals, in order for us to get to freedom, in order for us to get to justice, freedom and justice is broad words. What does that look like? We have to continue to work together in those interdenominational, interracial coalitions in order to move forward properly. So I just want to salute our leadership. I want to salute the King family, the Drum Major Institute. I want to salute Jonathan Greenblatt and Anti-Defamation League. I think it was over 200 organizations that were partnered, but I just want to make sure that everyone understands that it was not just about Reverend Al Sharpton or NAN. It was every single person that was out there that took leadership responsibility. Thank you. Every single person that took a bus, every single person that was here at the National Action Network, Patrice Perry, the bus is here. Let's clap Patrice Perry up and her team. They would not have left here, gotten here on time without her leadership. This has been, I don't know, countless, how many years she's just been holding it down from right here, but she made sure all the buses from around the nation were done. Salute to D. Vestoon, the National Field Director, who made sure that everyone from around the nation who needed to get to that bus, or needed to get to a bus, or needed to get to DC, he made sure that they got there. I also want to salute, now, a lot of people, like I said, see the front scenes, but behind the scenes is very, very important. And the production, from the beginning. Ebony Riley is our DC Borough Chief. Ebony Riley was one who helped to, after, of course, Reverend Sharpton and Attorney Michael Hardy and that national leadership. Ebony Riley is under 40 years old, and she basically spearheaded the staff and made sure that we all knew what we were doing, and led Katrina Jefferson, who was in the back right here, who was our New York chief right here from the House of Justice, and Trudy Lucas. I don't know if everyone knows Trudy, but if you've been at convention or if you've been to our national events, you know Trudy Lucas. But basically, they were organizing the calls on the ground since the beginning, since Rev made the clarion call for the March on Washington. And then Ebony, she couldn't be there on the ground the week of, but my sister, Dominique Sharpton, who I must say is the queen of production, she stepped in and she helped, stood in the gap. And they basically, her and Katrina led the production from 6 a.m. on to the end of the day. And that was 92 degrees. It was not easy. And I don't care what you believe. Rev runs a tight shift. So in order to make that happen, I must say that Katrina Jefferson, Dominique Sharpton, hands off and salute to you both. Thank you for your leadership and efforts. And to say, to bring it back historically, and we mentioned that, many people mentioned that on stage, 60 years ago, women did not speak during the march. Women did not have leadership efforts in the march. So for all of these women who are all under the age of 40 years old under 50 years old, basically to have that leadership ability under NAN, under our leader, I just think that we've come strides. Also, just one more time for the young people, not just our leadership, but the NAACP Wisdom Code, National Urban Leagues leadership, young professionals, and also the young people that came from around the country, especially Deanna Burton, she spoke with us. She helped to organize the schools from Florida. Florida is crucial in this fight forward, crucial in this fight forward. So for her to organize 4 buses alone from Florida, from 4 different schools, FAMU, I forgot all the names because it's not right in front of me, but basically they will be essential in this fight going forward. Everybody doesn't live in Florida, but they go to school there, but then they go home. So therefore they will impact the voting. They will impact the issues there. So we have to make sure that we create this coalition. This was not just a moment, everyone. This was a movement. Now I want to come back to right here, Giselle. Giselle, stand up for everyone who does not know you. So Giselle got up, she made sure she texted. She also helped with Patrice, but she also made sure that she was on the ground. And Gino, stand up. As soon as they touched ground, it was early morning. I know it was hard for y'all to get up because y'all are still children. That was not easy. At the end of the day, they made sure they were there. They stood in that 92-degree weather, right there. Right, there was no shade. They were not in the shade. A lot of people found trees. They were not in the shade, and they stood up. Some people asked them to get up. They found whatever they needed to do to help whoever they could help, and that's what I love to see. But that's what you learn to do here. Is basically to get in place and serve. And every time I looked at both of y'all was sweating, but y'all was trying to figure out something to do, and I appreciated your leadership. I thank y'all for coming, and I thank y'all for continuing to do this every week because you don't have to do that. So thank you, and thank you to your parents, Gina Williams, for making sure. And she's not your parent, but she made sure that you got here. So thank you for your leadership with both of them. Thank you. Parenting matters, so it's about that. All right, I'm moving out the way. Again, we're going to talk more and more about the march, but I think I announced this last week. I know I announced it last, not think. We announced this last week that all roads led to DC this weekend. All roads, who remembers, leads to where this weekend? Hey, all right, somebody was paying attention. New Jersey. Why are we going to New Jersey this weekend? Yeah, the twins. Can somebody help Mother Kennedy out? Can she buy a lifeline? Bernard Prasad. There we go. Everybody was paying attention. Okay, great. So these flyers are in the front, on the desk. This is the first annual memorial service for Bernard Prasad Jr. As Mother Kennedy said, the twins, one of them is their mom, and one is their aunt. But they come here mostly every Saturday. They've been leading actions. It's a lot of the members here that have gone to Jersey and still with the family. Derek Perkinson will be there, and Reverend Malcolm Byrd. Reverend Sharpton is the keynote speaker. Reverend Herbert Daughtry, who we love, Larry Ham, and Minister Baba Zaid are all speaking and being honored. But we want to stand with this family because we still have had no justice or accountability at all in regards to what happened to Bernard. And as far as the officers, they're still on duty. That doesn't make any sense. There's no form of justice, no form of accountability, and it seems like they just don't care. So we need to make sure that everyone knows that we're outside. Like I said during the speech, we're outside for the right reasons. Let's make sure that we get to Jersey this weekend with this family. Thank you, and let's have a great huddle.
Thank you, Ashley. All right. I love this part of the program. Before we get to our good news, let's have Gino come and do our membership and text alerts.
Hi, everyone. Is everybody an updated member for the year 2023? Have you renewed your membership? If not, this applies to you as well as those who are not members. The best way to stay informed and the action is to become a NAN member. Stay informed about NAN events close to where you live. Text Justice followed by your state to 59769. And remember on Saturday at 9 a.m. to come see Rev speak.
I like your shoes. Thank you, Gino. All right. Anyone have some good news that want to come up? If you have experiences that you want to share about the march, please hold them because we are going to do a segment later in the program about the March on Washington. But if you have some good news to share other than your experience from the March on Washington, please come up at this time and share your good news. Thank you.
So, I have been very fortunate enough to be offered a new job, so I'm very happy about that. Thanks to Noelle, the lady that comes here. I don't know if y'all know her, and my auntie Gina, so thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Shayel Byers, and my good news is that I started high school today. Yes. And it was good. My first day was good, and that's really all.
How's everybody doing? Last Monday we were talking about how Donald Trump was making United States look like a fool. So my good news is that down in Georgia, you know, they'll be giving the black people 5 times, 10 times as much punishment than the white man. So Atlanta got a black DA. And they got Trump this time. She took a mug shot of him and gave him a penitentiary number. So that's a good step for black people, because she's a black DA, black queen. So it's very likely he won't be making the United States look like fools no more. And he's not going to be the next president, not with that mug shot and penitentiary. So I want to give my hat off and much love to Fannie Willis, the deep black DA in Atlanta, black queen, and I want to give my love to all the black queens here and the black kings.
My good news is that my son came to the March on Washington. I was begging my son all this whole time because he kept saying he's not going to come, he's not going to come. And then I was like, I want you to come, because he's the type of person, he wants you to like keep messing with him, you know. And so on the night, you know, he wouldn't come with me because he's like, well, how long are we going to have to wait before the bus move, right? So he wouldn't come with me. And Mr. Author was like, I bet your son not gonna come, right? And he was like, I bet you $50. And I said, you're gonna lose that $50. I'm still waiting because my son came, so I'm still waiting.
Hello. My good news is that, well, next week is a holiday, so I'm sure you won't have the meeting, but by the time I come next time, I'll have my second grandchild. Yeah. My second granddaughter, for all you ladies in the room.
Congratulations. Thank you. And good luck to your family. Congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing. You have good news, Mother? Yeah. Come on down.
Good evening, Huddle family. And you know I was there with you all in spirit. My good news is that we now have a new goddess in our temple. And this weekend, that's why I was not in Washington, because she was being initiated and being ordained. So kindly please welcome Goddess Soul Jade Whitehead. Okay. So that's why I wasn't there, because she was in training for the whole year. And of course, you know, in the African condition, when it was cast, it came out the last Saturday in August, and I'm like, what? You know, but the ancestors and the Holy Body Temple, she was ordained this past Saturday. Oh.
And let me say, the training cost how much? The training cost how much? Okay. People can't do that. People that want to do it, they are gonna have to know the cost. Anyway, it cost over $1,000. She sponsored me.
With the help of PBS.
That's your job. You sponsored me.
With the help of PBS.
She said, listen, it'll be an honor for me to sponsor you. And she did it.
Yeah, I got initiated in 2011, you know, and my whole thing is, the whole thing about the initiation and about becoming goddess doesn't have anything to do really with religion. It has to do with that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. All right, I'm going to call now Mr. Arnold Penix to come. Sorry about that, but we do need to hear and have our Artivism segment. Mr. Arnold Penix.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! 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 Fist bump the person next to you and tell them you love them. Boy, it's been a long time, and I'm back. But I'm happy to be back because in 2 weeks, this theater, this space will be transformed into a wonderful theater because we'll be doing Judgment Day of Tupac as a recruitment mechanism for our huddle members. So each person, each adult in here has to bring a preteen or a teenager to see the production. And at the same time, if you have any African clothes or fabric, you will be participating in this interactive theater production of the play in which you will play ancestors, and the whole theater, the whole space will be set up like a boxing ring because Tupac will be fighting for his soul. He'll be fighting for his soul, so we are rooting for him. So we're gonna have an African drama, and the roles of Tupac is played by Anthony Nance. Is Lorenzo Vaughn is also playing doing various hip hop characters. Snoop Dogg, DMX, Busta Rhymes. They're all in the production, and what we're gonna do, I saved 2 roles for huddle members. The ring girl, all she has to walk around with a sign that says Album 1, Album 2, and Album 3. Brenda was a teenage girl and wanted a Tupac song for Brenda Has a Baby. So all you have to do is act like you got a little baby for a teenage girl. And also we have a role called the She-Devil. And the She-Devil is the girl who actually put Tupac in prison. But she definitely, the only thing she has to do is come out and just shake a little tail feather. That's all she has to do. And I think Dominique will be great for that role. Because she'll be wonderful because she has the charisma and the charm. And Ashley can play Brenda. Ashley can play Brenda, or she can play the ring girl. But all one would participate in. But the show was produced I guess about 20 years ago at the National Black Theater. and we toured all over the country, but the East Coast with the play. And Barbara Ann Teal was alive at the time, and so she got Dougie Fresh to put money into the production, and so it was a very exciting time. Tunde Samuels was alive. He was a big producer in the black theater, and he acquired the production, and we did it at Russell Simmons Art Gallery. Russell Simmons took the play, and so it's Danny Simmons produced it in his art gallery. So we did the first reading of the Tupac play, and then of course from the Vibe and Source magazine, I read the articles from the Vibe magazine and the Source magazine, and came up with the play, and it got a lot of attention during that time. So in honor of the 50th anniversary of hip hop, I decided to bring the play back in order to help what? The formerly incarcerated. So the Theater for the Formerly Incarcerated was created. And what we're going to do in the mission statement of National Action Network, there's a whole slew of voters who are now parolees who can now vote. So we are having our second chance committee and having all of our people coming together so they can get new voters back into the voting booth and ballots. And that's what the Theater for the Formerly Incarcerated is about. So we're going to have a little presentation before the play starts, basically talking about the rights to vote for our inmates. And of course, a lot of the performance in the show has history in the incarceration system, and we want to give them an opportunity to learn stagecraft and theater arts. So I'm excited about going around and touring for the 2024 presidential election. So that's why this play is very important, that we participate, and it's a great way for NAN Youth Huddle to recruit on the road and get people involved as far as different chapters across the country as we register these new voters to vote, because they never got an opportunity to do that. So that's why I want everyone to take a flyer before you leave for the Judgment Day of Tupac and be here to be either ancestors with your African wear. And this whole, like I said, it's going to be like a boxing ring, so we're going to have a jury because it's called a Judgment Day. So the Judgment Day of Tupac, in which you will become the juries should his soul stay in limbo, because it takes place in spiritual limbo, in which the inmates are there looking up and looking down, and some people didn't get a chance to go through the light and be with their tribe or their ancestors. So the play takes place in limbo, where you see the different inmates looking over from the tiers and looking down and seeing a part of it. And there's one chair, it's called the hot seat, in which he comes, and Tupac sees the hot seat, so he has to come truth. So he's basically pushed into a confession about who he really was. And that's what the play is about, getting him to come clean, because he was from the arts. Him and Jada Pinkett Smith were in drama school together, and so he started, after the character of Juice, the character he played in Juice, he started acquiring and becoming a character that he really wasn't. He was a theater kid, with a very activist mother, which Finney's in the play, and you get a chance to see her take on how she takes responsibility for the way her son turned out since she was a Panther and she was in prison and all of these different things. So I'm very excited about bringing the Judgment Day of Tupac back to the stage so we can get all our formerly incarcerated people involved and get them to register to vote. And that's the arts and entertainment segment. Thank you.
So just to add to that before I give it back to Damo, those 2 days, the 10th and the 11th. So the 11th is a Monday, the 10th is a Sunday. So we're back to school, and we're having I don't know, some people were here from 2 years ago when we did Huddle Up Harlem up the street. So we're bringing that back, but we're bringing it back to the House of Justice. We're going to be here, thanks to Mo Bars and Mr. Arthur and the sports committee. We're going to be doing it on the 10th at 12 o'clock to 4 p.m., 12 to 4, here next door with the open lot. And then the next day we'll be here on Monday with Penix and the NAN Arts and Culture Committee. So it'll be 2 days of empowerment with the community. It'll be giveaways. It'll be a whole bunch of fun for the community, all right? So spread the word. Have you heard? All right? Dominique.
Thank you. Now we will start our Did You Know segments. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that when we do our Did You Know segments and we open up the floor for questions or comments, please try to stay in the context of what we're discussing. Do not go off and we appreciate and encourage your comments and for you to share the mic. That's what this forum is about, for us to raise our voice and to talk to each other and have an open forum. But let's be respectful of the topic that we're discussing and how we need the information to resonate with our youth. So if we can keep our comments on topic tonight, that will be a great appreciation. We're going to start off with Mo talking about the update on the Sha'Carri Richardson situation.
Good evening, everyone. As America weeps for Sha'Carri Richardson, Magic Johnson beams with pride over World Athletics Championship triumph. The summer months are surely starting to heat up for sports aficionados. Between the fascination around the U.S. women's teams for the World Championship to the fever surrounding the FIBA World Cup, fans have had a lot to take in. However, collectively holding everyone's attention is the former in Budapest. Moreover, USA's triumph has garnered the attention of the likes of NBA and Los Angeles Laker legend Magic Johnson. An avid fan of track and field, Irvin had a message to share after the victorious results. Throughout his life, whether on the court or off it, Johnson's love for sports has remained clear as day. Post his legendary career in LA, the five-time champion transitioned to various business ventures. Among them, a keen interest in sports was visible to all. A stint as general manager and president of basketball operations for the LA Lakers was just the beginning. Following up, he moved into an ownership role for the LA Dodgers. Recently, he even took up a stake in the NFL, becoming the third African-American owner in the league's history with the Washington Commanders, formerly known as the Washington Redskins. But it isn't just the uber-popular sports that the GOAT point guards take as an interest in. Avidly keeping up with the World Championships in Budapest, Magic has provided constant updates about the event's ongoings. Just 2 days prior, the $620 million Rich Johnson celebrated the relay team's triumph despite the chaos around their victory. Today, the U.S. women's team celebrated success. A highly competitive final saw Team USA grab the silver and bronze medals as sprinters Gabby Thomas and Sha'Carri Richardson took home the second and third place finishes, respectively. While much of the buildup was devoted to the intriguing rivalry between Sha'Carri and members of Team Jamaica, Magic paid no heed to such notions. Magic's classy congratulations focused on the feat achieved by the young athletes. However, it was the competitive battle between Sha'Carri and veteran Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price that stole the limelight. Richardson and Fraser-Price didn't have the greatest of relationships ahead of the World Championship. After coming last in the Diamond League in 2021, the Jamaican was caught unintentionally smirking during Richardson's interview. The 23-year-old took it personally and kept the image as the profile picture on her social media handles. Petty. However, things seem to have improved now as the American star was full of praise for the 36-year-old after winning the 100M gold, even admitting she was a major inspiration to Richardson. Sha'Carri Richardson's 100M win overshadowed by twin Jamaican triumphs. In a tale as old as time, the proven master went up against a prodigy as Richardson came across Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price. It was a tale of two timelines converging. Ultimately, Shelly's teammate Shericka Jackson retained her 200M women's title in the 4x100 relay race. Shelly, along with her Jamaican co-stars, will put on a remarkable performance. Climbing up the leaderboards, their 41.70 seconds finish time would end up as the second best qualifying time ever. While Sha'Carri made waves with her victory in the 100M sprint, the 23-year-old wasn't able to engineer a win for her team in other races. However, with another victory in the record books for the LSU superstar, has she signaled the start of a new era? Share your thoughts and comments. So my first question, how many people have been following the races with Sha'Carri Richardson and Team Jamaica, just the running? Okay, so for those who don't know, one of the questions was, it seems like if you listen to the article, it seems like they're really coming down on Sha'Carri, or they have like a kind of a sarcastic undertone when it comes to her, because lately she's only been doing interviews with black reporters. She, of course, I'm sure you all remember the time where, with the marijuana and with, her antics and how she reacted to certain articles about her, She probably was angry, a little more immature, but she sat down, got herself together, and she came back better than ever, and you can see what she's doing now. So my first question is, when it comes to, you know, sports like racing and basketball, even music in the art form in a sense, and the black community, how important is competition, and where do you feel like competition should stop when it comes to black men and black women in sports or any profession that is naturally competitive? But you know, when media gets involved and social media gets involved, you know, things can get ugly, things can be said that was never said. How do you feel like that should be, you know, navigated through a person's career when they're dealing in the public eye, and, you know, the press and the media tries to create rivalries that never even existed, to where these people are looking at each other like, we got beef with each other? I didn't know that. You didn't. I didn't know that either. So when it comes to competition, should there be, in the black community, should there be competition, or just to just off of history alone, should we kind of like shy away from pinning one against another? Floor is open.
I will start it off by saying, of course, as us being individuals in the black community, it's hard for us to want to like put somebody down that's also in the black community as well, because we feel like we should all be uplifting each other, because we are all going through the same struggles. But when I think about it from an athlete's point of view, I don't think about, oh, I'm gonna put my black sister down because, you know, anything else. I'm just a competitive person, and this is a sport. And actually, if you want to be technical, if you put being a competitor in a sport is why people watch. You watch sports to see people compete against each other. You want to see who's the best, who could do this that one can't do. So I don't think that it's much of a big deal. I think that we need to stop thinking about it so negatively and just think of like how athletes would think about it, because Kobe and LeBron were on two different teams, but they loved each other. What they shared behind the scenes was a brotherly love, a black brotherly love. But when they were on a court, they were competitive against each other because they both wanted to win for their own respected teams. I'll keep it like that.
Very well put. That's what I'm looking for. So by a show of hands, yourself, how many people are naturally competitive? Okay.
I think that beef works for our community. I just think that, you know, I remember seeing a interview with Snoop Dogg where he had said he had called somebody out. The guy didn't really want to have no trouble, but he said that's the way that we promote each other. So I find that in our community, we feed off of that back and forth. Whoever got beef with who is how we pay attention. If everybody's nice, nobody cares. So I feel like, you know, the way that we move in pictures, like when it comes to Michael Jordan, when he showed all his rings, that's all he had to do. You know, like you can argue about the game all day, but who got the rings? And then all he did was, it was silence. It was just nothing. It was just a picture, and we like it. It's just a great flow, you know. And yes, they tried to tear that young woman down because of the weed, yet we legalize weed. I mean, it's just so messy how they just want to do stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like people, like 1 minute people say you ain't black if you don't smoke weed. Then the next minute they want to tear you down because you can. It's just how people like to do. And if you make it smooth and you keep going, like that young woman Shakari, it's a beautiful thing. But I don't feel that we will pay attention to you as an overall community if there's no beef. I mean that's how I see it. If there's no beef with somebody, nobody's paying attention to you in our community. So the better you, and we all know you can have no problem behind doors, behind closed doors. Like Oprah, when she showed that she had her all those women come to her house. She used to have it. Mariah Carey, everybody sit at the table. Oprah used to do that, and it's like that's just how it's gonna be. You know, I thought that was great, but we do know that Mariah Carey and Nicki Minaj was having problems, you know, and it made us look just to see what's going to go on. So for me, I think beef works.
So, like Anita posed a great point. So, do we differentiate beef and competition? Because notice she said beef a couple times. So, is it important we be clear on what we're talking about? That's another question I want to pose.
Okay, I'm a competitive person, but usually with myself. Meaning, I want to improve on what I did better on the last time. I want to do better the next time. That's my personal way of dealing with competition. Now, if somebody wants to compete with me, I usually don't know it. No, I really usually don't know it, because I'm not trying to have competition directly. But when it comes to sports, you're going to know who your opponents are. I am strictly against trash talk of any kind. I believe that a person can compete in a very respectful, courteous manner, but when it's time to compete, it's on. I don't think trash talk is necessary, because for the most part, most people who really trash talk, they're emotionally immature. And when somebody trash talk like real hardcore and they get the applause, the person get their feelings hurt who didn't get the applause. So people are not usually emotionally ready for the trash talk. They like doing it, but when it's dished on them, they can't take it. And that's where the violence comes in too, because a lot of it starts with trash talk. That when one gets, like I said, the most applause, or yo, he said it, or she said it, you know, usually a person's answer is some type of violence because they can't trash talk the next person. Trash talk is a skill set, and not many people have it. But they want to participate in it, and then if they, you know, lose, they don't know how to handle the loss. So trash talk is not necessary, but definitely knowing that the person you're going to compete with is really, really there to win. And that's where the training comes in. The training comes in. So everybody's training for the same race. It's on. You don't have to trash talk the next person. It's not necessary. Because when the game is over, some people, you can't even party with them afterwards. They're still mad. So let's really keep it real. That's one part of hip-hop I totally dislike. Just to get off the subject for a moment. That battle rap, you can see people getting their feelings hurt. You can see it. I'm not with it. And that's a result of what I believe happened to Biggie and Tupac. You know, the trash talk was rough, and they're good at it. So for the most part, game on, do your best, shake hands, but say I'm in it to win it. But no trash talk is necessary. Respect is due to all, in all circumstances, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Oriette?
How y'all doing? So for one, I'm very athletic, I'm very competitive, and I talk a lot of trash, but I back it up. Now, Sha'Carri's first race, she talked a lot of trash, and she came dead last. So for her to come back and win, that's a big thing. You got to remember, one of the greatest trash talkers was Muhammad Ali. You understand? Like, he defeated you before you even step in the ring. You scared because he done talked so much. And guess what? He backed it up. So a part of athleticism is talking trash, because guess what? You got to intimidate the person that you playing against. If you go up in there all soft and meek and humble, they going to whip your behind. You understand? Because they're going to think that they can. But if you confident in it, sometimes, you know, the confidence, you give you a little swag. You like, yo, I'm going to come in there, I'm going to beat you up. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and not beat you up in a physically violent way, but in the athletic way. So the basketball teams, football teams, everybody talks trash because it's a confidence that you have. Sha'Carri didn't back it up the first time, but she didn't talk no trash this time and came first. So that's something to pay attention to. She had to take that whooping, take that lesson, talk less, and then follow through and come first. And that's what she did. So I'm very proud of her, because when she did the same thing 2 years ago, I was one of the first people to be like, She done came dead last after talking all that smack. And the little island Jamaican people, and I saw the clip. Shelly Ann Frazier was in the back like, But you got to be able to back it up if you're going to talk it. That's all I'm going to say.
Listen, You play spades, you talk trash. You play dominoes, you talk trash. You what? That's how you do it. I watched the track and field because I was a track and field star in my high school. And listen, take it. They gonna talk about you. Wipe the sweat off and keep on going. What does our Reverend Al Sharpton say? People gonna talk about you, know you doing something. Come on now. Talking trash is part of it. Wipe the sweat off and do your thing. Listen, she did her thing. She did her thing.
Thank you, thank you. My second question before I wrap up with a final thought. How do you feel that Sha'Carri was right and only, well, the reason why I keep saying Sha'Carri, because she did an interview the night before last and she corrected somebody on pronouncing the name. So maybe I said it wrong, or I'll look it up and see how it's really supposed to be pronunciated. But is she wrong or right for only taking interviews from black journalists and reporters? I just wanted to know a quick.
Hi again. So I feel like that she's not wrong because, as we notice with all of these black athletes, when there are white, what do you call them? Reporters, when there are Caucasian reporters, they are usually out to get these black athletes. They ask them personal questions that have nothing to do with their sport. They bring up their past. They bring up their past. They bring up everything, their parents' past. They know everything, because when you're famous, you get to a certain level of fame, they start to know everything. They start watching you. They know this. They know that. So there's no privacy. So when athlete is stepping into a more social platform and they're getting questioned by these Caucasian reporters, these reporters are coming to get them, coming to potentially end their career if they can, because that's what they do. So she's not wrong for that. I actually commend her for that, because that would be the first time that I've ever seen a black athlete only want black reporters questioning them.
Thank you.
Okay, the example that the sister just gave is because some reporters talk trash. They're trash talkers too. So, again, if you're willing to dish trash, be ready to take it. From anybody, even reporters of all colors. Now, the fact that this other sister shared that the athlete won even with little to no trash talk, that's important, because that's what really counts. Trash talk may be meant to intimidate, but it's also to increase the profile of the trash talker. Now, Muhammad Ali was excellent, but it was to increase his profile. He did poetry and all that with it. It wasn't necessarily to intimidate, because a competitor knows that's going to be a tactic, so they can't be intimidated. If they say, well, you know, the person going to talk trash to intimidate, I'm not going to be intimidated. But I want to bring another level of trash talk that we have not considered. The audience trash talks. Especially ballers. And for one word, and see, there's no boundaries when it comes to trash talk. And we got to remember that part also. So the in-curse word is part of trash talk with certain groups. So when you talk trash talk, we got to understand exactly what we're talking about. There's no boundaries when, oh yeah, they get mad. You could talk about somebody's mother, father, sister, brother, child. You could do all that when you talk trash talk. There's no boundaries. You could talk to people about their abilities, disabilities, anything. That's why I have no due regard for it. So if there's no boundaries on trash talk, be ready for it to come at you in any way, and you can't get mad if you say it's part of what we do. I don't believe that part. But if it's part of what you do, be prepared to be talked. And y'all need to really, I'm also an educator, talk about somebody. The trash talk is not about, and it's against the person. So say, fam, oh, they were talking about me, trash talking about me. No, they were trash talking against me, because some of it's not even true. But this trash talk is seriously and can cause a lot of dangerous conduct. The freedom of speech thing allows people to talk a whole lot of vicious trash talk. So we got to make up our minds. If there is no freedom of speech when it comes to other activities, because it can lead to violence. Trash talk in athletics can do the same thing. Thank God it hasn't happened at a high level, but it can, depending on the emotional maturity of the person. And most trash talkers, like I said, they're very emotionally fragile. They really are. So it is what it is. I mean, your belief is part of the game. Be ready. And you're going to feel it too, because personally, when me being who I am, if a person really talks a lot of trash talk against a black person, I get mad too. I'm not with it. I'm not with it. You know, I take it very personally. If somebody talk about a NAN member in a real vicious way and I hear it, okay, I'm not with it. I'm not with it. So nobody comes to me with trash talk. I don't want to, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And I tell them straight up that.
All right, so as you can see from this article, you see what that spiraled into. Look at all the things we just ended up talking about just because of this small, you know, it wasn't even about these two women anymore. You've learned that there's levels to arguing, to talking trash. There's a lot of levels. There's a lot of levels to competition, trash talking. You see how the lines are blurred. There's no boundaries, especially in the heat of the moment, depending on, because there's competition in every industry. Even in the civil rights movement, you got people that's in competition with this man and he not even paying them no mind. He's for the cause. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's so many levels, there's so many things of competition. Is like in hip hop, like somebody brought up Pac and Big. What the hip hop thing is, the battle in MC is one of the 5 elements of hip hop. Battling. Back then in that time, in the 80s, they was like, you ain't nothing, man. That was their trash talking. You ain't nothing, you jive and all that stuff. And they would rap, a lot of them rap without cursing. And right after that, they're giving each other a pound. When they started b-boying on those floors, they would b-boy, dance, twist their legs. After they was done, one crew look at other crew, it was love. Fast forward into the 90s, it was street stuff that ended up getting Tupac and Biggie killed. It wasn't the music. It didn't stay on wax. It wasn't on wax. It was in the streets already before it came into the studio. Same thing now. Fortunately, thank God, Jay-Z and Nas, when they had their back and forth, they was able to come together, stand before our people, and show that there was unity. MC Shan, all of them. But I'm just saying, you know, name whoever you want. You know what I'm saying? There was so many people, so many different people that came together and showed their... Calm down. So many people that came together and showed that unity in hip hop. Because nowadays, if there's a rap beef in hip hop, you know where it's going. That's why we got hip hop police. That's why we got people watching rappers every time they land in LAX or LaGuardia and stuff like that. So, and when it comes to the trash talking, it could go from you're not as good as me to somebody, like she said, talking about somebody's mama, somebody inviting somebody to their genitals and it going left. So it's really a fine line between, you know, trash talking and being competitive. But competitive is just something that's naturally around. I'm talking going back to the time where they was in the Roman Empire chasing tigers and fighting lions and all that stuff that they was doing back then. So it's just really important for our youth, bringing it back to full circle. It's really important that we let our youth understand and know what true competition and competitiveness is and what it's not. So they don't look online seeing these rappers dissing the dead and rapping about it. That's not competitiveness. That's not trash talk. That's just outright. That's war. That's demonic activity. And that's not what we want to see our young people do. So thank you for listening to the segment. Moving along. So our next Did You Know? Our next Did You Know? Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move these Did You Knows along. Thank you, Mo. Cuz have Giselle come up and do her report about Claflin University, followed by I'm just going to introduce them. It'll be Giselle doing Claflin University, followed by Ashley Sharpton doing a piece on the economic equity gap.
Thank you, Dom. So, as Dom said before, Claflin University students head to the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. So let's keep in mind, this is very important. We are also here not only for just the community in general, but students and youth. So this is this is called the Youth Huddle. So this is what we're here for, so we're gonna get into it. So, students from a Midland school head to the nation's capital for a historic event. And I have to shout out my brother, Felivi Dosa. He played a big part in this, the reason why we have this article now. So please give him a hand. Yes. Fo, we love you. You're very well respected here as far as everything that you do. So, let's get into it. More than 60 students from the university will have the opportunity to march this time around. Anaya Whaley, hopefully I'm saying it right, a member of the Student Government Association, says she believes this is a rare opportunity. We have a lot of students who are very involved on campus and very active in our community, Whaley said. They really want to just be a part and participate in something that is meaningful and important to them. These students will get the chance to hear from guest speakers like the Reverend Al Sharpton and Martin Luther King III. Claflin Student Government President Jabez Robertson said hearing from the speakers will have a considerable impact. I just hope that we just really get educated on what the Black vote means as well as the exposure to these figureheads, Robertson said. Because growing up, we didn't really get exposure to this because it isn't being taught in our high schools. And it takes a few students to come to a college campus to have the goal to shape the Black vote as well as educate Black voting because this is very important. Felivi Dosa is the National Youth and College Director for the National Action Network. Dosa said this march should start conversations for all of the students participating. We got a lot of work to do, said Dosa. This march is going to be a great time for young people to come together to talk, to organize, to see what we can do to change some laws, get into some good trouble. So, that is my Did You Know? So basically, the message is to bring in more youth so we can inform them on how we should change or better our lives. Like he said, the work is not done, After the march, we still have some work to do. So this is for everybody live and everybody in here. Please, any youth that you can bring, anybody, it could be cousins, friends, anybody, like friends, daughters and, stuff like that. So we just want to bring all the youth so we can help them if they need help, and they can help us because we are the future generation, and we need to help them help us, right? So that's my Did You Know, and passing it back to Dom. Well, Ashley. Sorry.
Hello. All right, so for those who were at the march, one of the major issues was basically for economic justice. And I don't know if everyone heard of the Fearless Fund. Reverend's been talking about them. They've been in the news for like the last 3 weeks. The 2 young women with the lawsuit, and they're basically trying to sue them because they fund Black, female-led businesses, basically. So basically, it's reverse discrimination they're basically trying to do, kind of what happened with affirmative action. Now they're coming for everything, DEI. I don't want you to be confused before I go in. Is everyone clear with that? Everyone know something about that? All right. So, a new report shows 60 years after the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, economic disparities continue to plague Black America due to a lack of legislation in the post-civil rights era. The Economic Policy Institute, in its report, notes that gaps in home ownership, wealth, and wages continue to keep one of the march's goals, economic justice, out of reach for many Black people. The barriers to economic equity include occupational segregation, discrimination, hiring and pay inequity, equitable pathways to promotion, a stagnant minimum wage, and falling union coverage. Adewale A. May, policy analyst in the Institute's program on race, ethnicity, and the economy, told the Griot. Some of the things that were advocated for in 1963, we're still asking for in 2023, May maintained. May authored the report titled Chasing the Dream of Equity, How Policy Has Shaped Racial and Economic Disparities. His report found black unemployment remains persistently high. Over the last 50 years, the jobless rate of black workers often exceeded 10%, while the white unemployment rate has never reached those heights. The racial wealth gap remains stubbornly disproportionate, as white families have on average 8 times more wealth than black families. Federal legislation hasn't addressed areas that could help improve the financial standing of black Americans, including raising the federal minimum wage, protecting unions and collective bargaining, and job training assistance. And that's important to know, especially with Reverend Sharpton and all of our leaders right now with the White House, meeting with the White House. We need federal legislation to help push for the economic justice. Anyway, racial economic inequalities will persist without legislation explicitly targeting and remedying the injustices left unresolved by race-neutral policies, which disregard the challenges that specific racial or ethnic groups face. Other reports have also found that black Americans have made little financial progress. For example, a March Pew Research report shows the racial wealth gap isn't closing anytime soon, since black households have a median income, that means the middle, of $46,400, which amounts to 42% less, that's crazy, than the overall population, which is 70,784. I'm gonna say that again. A March Pew Research report shows the racial wealth gap isn't closing anytime soon, since black households have a median income of $46,400, which amounts to 42% less than the overall populations of $70,784. That's crazy. The March on Washington, which was held on August 28, 1963, became synonymous with Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. But the march was much more than that. Its organizing manual listed 10 demands, including adopting fair labor standards and Fair Employment Practices Acts and a jobs training program for all unemployed workers. That's essential. As the EPI report notes, the promises after the march did little to close the equity gap. May points to a minimum wage policy that exempts certain classes of workers like seasonal workers and babysitters. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour has remained unchanged since 2009. Say that again. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour has remained unchanged since 2009. That needs to change. If we have wages that are stagnant at $7.25, but things are going to be more expensive, even the workers who are most likely to be paid the minimum wage, which happens to be black workers, might be underemployed. They're getting paid, they have a job, but they're not getting the amount of money that's able to sustain their economic security or provide for themselves and their families. He continued, because of these contributing factors, the black-white wage gap has persisted and sustained over time. Efforts to help black people achieve equity have lately hit several legal roadblocks. One law firm has been sued, that's what I was just talking about, over its fellowship program that promotes diversity. A venture capital fund has been sued for its Black Women Entrepreneurs program. That's the Freedom Fund. 5 employees filed a reverse discrimination lawsuit against a large newspaper chain. May believes society shouldn't pretend inequities don't exist, and there's no need for programs to help close the financial gap. When looking at numbers, we can see that disparities are quite wide, he said. We're noticing these disparities, so we can't act as if everything is equal. We cannot act as if these structural barriers don't exist. We have to redress and recognize the long shadow of Jim Crow, slavery, and for sure of discriminatory policies such as housing discrimination and redlining. His report draws a straight line between structural racism and the economic and social disparities that plague Black America, from Reconstruction to Jim Crow laws and the failed attempts at passing legislation to help create a level playing field. America has yet to address the promise of the March on Washington. 60 years later, it's important that we face a similar moment where we recognize that this list of demands can be used as a playbook for where we want to go from here. How do we achieve genuine racial equity? How do we measure racial equity? And how can we make scalable strides to achieve that? That's the most salient takeaway for me. So I thought this was important because he actually had a tangible way and he had a tangible reference of where we could go look. So I think that we should go look at the report that was originally released in 1963 because we rarely hear about that. We often hear about the I Have a Dream speech. We often hear about when they say, oh, tell them about the dream, Martin, and the points like that. And we talk about Bayard Rustin. But I rarely hear about the 10-point plan that they released. I rarely hear about any of that ever. So I think that we should definitely research that and take this Brother Ray's advice and go forward with that. But also with the equity gap, federally, I think that we should be calling for a raise in that. And that's crazy to me. I didn't even know that until I read this article. And like I said, we have access to President Biden and Kamala Harris and so many other people that we've heard from at the march, that we heard from at so many things with the National Network. We need to be making sure that our economic gap is a problem. As far as I don't know everybody spending here. I don't know what everyone falls in. I can assume, but I don't know. But as far as going to work every day, if you're working and getting paid and you're still not being able to live like comfortably, if your family is still not able to live comfortably, if you're still having a hard time eating, if you're still having a hard time paying your rent, that's a problem. That's not just because times are hard. That's something wrong in the system as far as economically. That's an economic issue. So that's not normal. So therefore, we should be fighting for that. That's something that I don't hear a lot about, and that's one of the major themes of the March on Washington was poverty. Jobs and justice and freedom, but jobs was about poverty, economic freedom, economic justice, economic empowerment. It's hard to basically go forward. It's hard for people to basically be happy and not want to fight each other or steal from each other if everyone is hungry, if everyone is starving, if everybody needs money. So the economic fight, I feel like, should be underlined more. A lot of us talk about police brutality. A lot of us talk about gun violence, and we all talk about it. We talk about it every week. We talk about it often every day. But the underlying point under that is poverty. If we solve that issue, if we help make the government underline that issue, then we will have less issues in our community. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you, Ashley. All right. Y'all keep taking my. Patrice? Okay. All right, well, as we are waiting to hear from Patrice, many of y'all know we did hear that there was an issue, a shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. Moments after we finished marching, I was sitting with Reverend Toon. We were at the Lincoln Memorial. The march had just concluded. We were making sure, calling around and making sure the buses and people were on their buses and buses were pulling out. And we had to stay at the Lincoln Memorial to literally load out everything. And we got a call that this Jacksonville shooting had happened. And a white man went into a store and shot 3 black people that were just shopping in a dollar store. And to give us more information about that and the fight, let's hear from Patrice Perry.
Pastor urges sadness, not rage, after white shooter kills 3 black people in Florida. The pastor of a church near the site of the racist fatal shooting of 3 black people in Florida told congregants Sunday to follow Jesus Christ's example and keep their sadness from turning to rage. Jacksonville's mayor wept. Others at the service focused on Florida's political rhetoric and said it's fueled such racist attacks. The shooting devastated a black neighborhood in Jacksonville Saturday as thousands visited Washington, D.C. to attend Reverend Al Sharpton's 60th anniversary commemoration of the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his historic I Have a Dream speech. The latest in a long history of American racist killings was at the forefront of Sunday services at St. Paul AME Church, about 3 miles from the crime scene. A masked white man carried out the shooting with at least 1 weapon, bearing a swastika, inside a Dollar General store, leaving 2 men and 1 woman dead. The shooting happened just before 2 p.m. within a mile of Edward Waters University, a small historical black university. In addition to carrying a firearm painted with the symbol of Germany's Nazi regime of the 1930s and 1940s, the shooter issued racist statements before the shooting. He killed himself at the scene. He hated black people, Jacksonville sheriff said. At the St. Paul AME Church, elected officials said racist attacks like this Saturday have been encouraged by the political rhetoric targeting wokeness and policies from the Republican-led state government headed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, including one taking aim at the teaching of Black history in Florida. We must be clear, it was not just racially motivated. It was a racist violence that is perpetrated by rhetoric and policies designed to attack Black people, period, said State Representative Angie Nixon, a Jacksonville Democrat, and one of the several elected officials to speak during the church service. Officials said the shooter wrote statements to the federal government and the media that contained evidence suggesting that the attack was intended to mark the 5th anniversary of the murder of 2 people during the video game tournament in Jacksonville by a shooter who also killed himself. Shortly before the attack, the gunman sent his father a text message telling him to check his computer where he found his writings. The family notified 911, but it was too late. This is a community that has suffered again and again, said Mayor Deegan. Rudolph McKissick, a national board member right here of National Action Network, and a senior pastor of the Bethel Church in Jacksonville, was in Jacksonville on Saturday when the shooting occurred in a historic Black area. Nobody is having honest, candid conversations about the presence of racism. This divide exists because of the ongoing disenfranchisement of Black people and a governor who was really propelling himself forward through bigoted, racially motivated actions to throw red meat to a Republican base. The Buffalo shooting, which killed 10 people, stands apart as one of the deadliest targeted attacks on Black people by a lone white gunman. The shooter was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. So, and it's a shame that so many of us came together on Saturday and then something like this happens, right? So I have a question, and I want some of our young people to come up first, and then some of our seasoned can come up after. Should someone be held accountable, being that the shooter killed himself, and it's now being investigated as a hate crime? Who pays for the crime? Let me say it again. Should someone be held accountable, being that the killer, he killed himself, but even after he kills himself, they're saying that it should still be investigated as a hate crime? Who should pay for this crime?
So, at first I was gonna say the parents. You know, I could have said teachers out of school, because we all know that racism is taught. It's not just, you don't just be born and you're racist. Like, I don't like Black people, I don't like white people, I don't like Asians, Jewish, this, that, and the third. Racism is taught. So he's 21. He was very young. You know, it wasn't like he was seasoned and he's been through like forms of racism or segregation, Jim Crow. It's not none of that. So I think who we have to blame is basically the generation. Like, I mean, that's y'all personal opinion, but mine, I feel like, you know, he obviously he obviously probably looked up to something or somebody that gave him these ideas. So I would just generalize the blame, because we can't say the parents, because we don't know the parents. We don't know if the parents were racist. Maybe they were. We can't say the teachers. We don't know if the teachers taught racism. We don't know. So I keep my answer generalized.
Thank you. It's your opinion. I love it. Come on. Who pays for the crime?
So obviously an investigation is necessary. It could be whomever raised him. Also check in his social media. If he associated with a particular group of people, that group of people should be held accountable for even teaching that. So investigation is necessary. It's very important. And the person being 21, he had to have some type of consistent exposure to whomever was teaching this, and it should be able to be found out and now hold that particular group accountable. Because for the most part, it's interesting that the people who assassinate black people, they kill themselves. That is something I really couldn't even guess at why they do that. But that may be something that they're taught too, by whomever they're learning this from. So an investigation is necessary. And whomever teaches any racism on that level, inform them that in the future, anybody who taps into their site and then commits a crime, they will be held accountable. That sounds like a very reasonable legal consequence for these organizations to slow down on trying to recruit hate that leads to violence.
Thank you.
I like that technological aspect of what Sister Word just said. I think it's important for us to consider understanding holding the social workers accountable at the school where that particular individual attended. I thought I heard you say there were two people next to the rifle, one holding the rifle that had a swastika on it or something like that. I'm wondering what that neighborhood is like where that person grew up at, because I'm not there. So because I don't know, I'm not exactly sure who to hold accountable precisely, but I think it's a good start to understand what this person might have been going through in their lives as I believe you said was a young person. So these young people, from what I understand, are responsible for producing themselves at school and places that are required for them to go. So where is the social work in that area? What is the social work like in that area? What are the social work requirements like down south in that area? Because now we're more concerned regarding Jacksonville, Florida. I believe you said Jacksonville is where the geographic location was. I feel as though if we're holding society accountable, we need to introduce more of an emphasis on assessing certain geographics to be high danger zones, because that is perhaps an example of domestic terrorism. And if there in fact was a swastika or symbolism that's implied, racism even further. So we need to really, really hone in on understanding what exactly was going on and how to prevent what was going on from happening again in the future, whether or not there's monetary compensation or any other way to pay, because I think you were asking who should pay for the crime, not for the services for the funeral and things like that. Who should pay for the crime? So if there were two people involved in the crime, we need to consider holding the other person accountable. There should be an investigation, like Sister Word said, whether or not those details will be made public or otherwise. But I think the public deserves to know more about what's going on in Florida. It seems as though Florida is developing some type of culture that should be prevented. So there needs to be an intervention.
Thank you. And just a clarification, it was only one individual who had the swastikas. I was talking about Ron DeSantis, who's promoting that rhetoric in Florida, which we thinking was a part of his thought process, removing Black history. So the young man probably listened to him and said, and that's what really made him realize that he still hated Black people. It was only one person, but we were talking about what he was drawing and stuff that he had in his house. Thank you.
First, hello, fellow dreamers. I got that over this weekend, and I hope there's no trademark on it because I plan to use it a lot because it's a good thing. But as far as this, as far as becoming a racist, I mentioned this last year here. There's a whole process that a person goes through that causes a person to potentially become a racist. And what that is, everybody gets affected by what they see, hear, or read. Some things we ignore. So when a person reads, hears, or sees some racist dialogue, some people think it makes sense to them. Then they keep on saying that to themselves, because the person each of us talks to more than anyone else is oneself. Our thoughts are us talking to them. And after a while, it becomes like reality to that person. And yes, when you have government officials or other officials making it seem like there's something wrong with people who are different than yourself, it just reinforces that idiotic thinking, because there's nobody to counter that. How many times do each of us have certain thoughts over and over throughout our lives? We have to attack the issue from the sense of getting to people when they are younger to understand what could happen to them in terms of their thinking as they get older. And that and climate change, which I mentioned, are two things that I'm devoting the rest of my life towards.
Just want to clarify that if I contradict any statements said before, there's no, confusion. This is just my point of view on this. But what I wanted to clarify was that this wasn't necessarily Ron DeSantis' fault. I'm sorry if that contradicts you. But it was more or less a culture fault. There's a lot of culture growing up in the background that's on the internet completely based off of a For You page or an algorithm, right? Basically saying if you have a hate for something and you watch that content on the internet, it'll be curated. You will constantly have that echo chamber go on and on and on. It keeps you on the site, it gives them money. Now, add that with how the internet was like in 2000. The internet before, where hate was prevalent, but very much underground. It's like if you hated something, you'll just go to the dark web, vent there, everybody agrees with you, go up on your day, all in good faith. Not in good faith, but I'm trying to say. All the soft stuff that was, culture is like, hey, love, peace, stuff like that. It was building up. People were there. It was positive. And then, of course, as you may know with the algorithm I just said, hate grows. And it grows, and it grows, and the more you watch it, the more you go into it, until all of a sudden, it's split into two sides. Those two sides are, well, good and bad, depending on where you think. Culture, religion, stuff like that. And, well, this culture right now is going to be a lot more hateful. That is the culture right now, whether it be, the way rap is, gangster stuff, hatred for a certain thing because someone tried to portray a culture, Disney, that ended up flopping a while, and that flop got curated. The more that flop got curated, the more people were like, hey, let's hate on that. And that hate translated to something else until Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, that just got mixed in because it was in the same echo chamber. And that was just clarification, if anything.
Thank you so much.
I don't know who said it earlier, but I heard it from the back. Like, whenever something happens when a Caucasian young boy or girl, like Columbine, Virginia Tech, this current situation, it's like it's 100 questions of, well, what was his background like? What did he go through? This, that, and the third. And when that same type of response is used for a young black boy who's got incarcerated or whatever happened in their life, it's an excuse. It's a cop-out when it comes to blacks using that same ideology that they use when a white boy or a white girl goes in and shoots something up and kills something. Like, it's just, and it's a different ball game down there below the Mason-Dixon line. They're still living in whatever times they're living in. And like, as simple as day, it's taught. It's taught. Whatever path that kid was on, Dylan Roof, all of them, they were taught something. All these kids that killed these black babies on college campuses, stores, supermarkets, somebody in that household growing up, mother, father, or both, grandparents, probably grand wizards, undercover, was feeding them that. And as they get older, like, and it ties into social media now because social media is now our amplifier. So everything gets amplified on social media. All that child has to do is follow one racist person or like one racist meme, and then his explore page is going to be full of algorithms of hatred, clans, the Proud Boys. And now he's feeding himself or herself without even having to listen to anybody in the household. The lessons is right in the smartphone. I don't even have to listen to Klan or anybody from that era. I don't even have to talk to no more. The hatred, I can find other young people that hate just like me from those rural areas. We get together, we create a message board, we cut our hair, we do all this dumb stuff, and put out this false narrative and put out all these lies, and we amplify on the lies, and then now another shoot up, bang bang. And we all know what's the issue. What are the main issues are? Guns. Guns, guns, guns. Down there, it's open carry. They can walk with it, talk with it like they have it. And we can sit here and talk in circles forever, but we know if no one else outside knows, we know what it takes to stop this or put a halt to this. We can't stop people from teaching their kids hate in the household. We're not there. But with these guns and stuff, making it restricting things, restricting states from having people go into Dick's Sporting Goods and be able to fill out an application, and while that application takes 2-3 months to process, I can still sell you a gun today. Like, stuff like that is crazy. It's insane. AR-15s, assault rifles, being able to buy ghost guns off the internet. That stuff is insane. Like, so we know what we got to do. It's not even point talking about it.
So last comment, the young man in the gray, last comment.
I think my answer to your question would be I would blame the media, because I feel like the fact that he had written something and he already planned, got his father to know, I don't like it. I don't care. He's dead, right? These people are dead. I don't want you writing the book about this guy, this killer right here. He's already plotted. He wants to be famous or something. So this is weird. He already plotted it. He's got these sick thoughts of how he wants to do it, and it would be on the media. Because at this point, it would be the media to continue this discussion and a way about him. Who cares about him? Who cares? If the media wants to focus on somebody, focus on the people that he killed. Why do you don't want to do that because they was in the Dollar Tree? Let's do that. The media can focus on them. Why did he decide to target these people, right? Because he's already wrote out stuff in his computer, calling his dad and all this kind of, no, something's not right. Just like how when they arrested Trump, in Fulton County, Martin Luther King was arrested in Fulton County. I don't trust none of it. He's got a little plan going on, right? So first they got Trump, all of this time around the March on Washington. Trump going in Fulton County, just like Martin Luther King. He's trying to act like he's right there. He's for the people. Look what they doing to me. Just like Martin Luther King and all those people. I'm right here with them. And now you got this kid. He up there, 21 years old, 2023, where people trying to say this. We don't have hate. We don't see color. All lives matter, right? And then this white young man gonna target only black people. Something's not right. And I feel it's just pushback because people came to the March on Washington. White people, they get all upset anytime we organize and we gather together. That's why they were saying it was against the law, right? So anytime we do anything positive, they have this really extremely negative response. And that's why I would blame the media. The media. I'm not talking about social media. I'm talking about the narratives that our radio and our regular TV puts together. So I would blame them.
Thank you. Our last comment. Y'all on fire. I love it.
I'm all right. I mean, when it comes to your question,
So my question was, should someone be held accountable, being that the killer, he shot himself and is still being investigated as a hate crime? So who pays for this crime?
Me personally, I think it's really like America, like the whole government, or like they should be the ones to pay for it. Cause it's like, if you think about like the whole country, like America, like it probably wasn't even called America. Like the country, to be honest, it was really built on lies. People came over here, kind of brought us over here. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like, and then I don't know. I'm trying to explain it as best as I could, and I feel like, and when it really come to like guns and stuff like that, like if they're gonna take guns away from all the people and stuff, if they do something like police shouldn't have guns neither. Nobody should have the power to take somebody else's life. If you feel what I'm trying to say, that for real, like, cause you never know what, I don't know how to explain that either, but hopefully Yeah. Now, and another thing is like, I feel like the only way racism will really stop is if people like, everybody got to stop profiling each other. Like when it comes to white people, like you got tattoos or whatever, you black, you cut, they think you mad gangster, you know, and then you mad, and then a white dude come around, you look at like you black, sometimes you feel nervous, like, oh, he looking at me, or he like bad energy, he probably profiling me right now. Like for real, that's how people got to, exactly. Everybody got to stop stereotyping each other. People got to, and and when I get back to like when I say how America's to blame, it really be the environment for people too. Like probably that, like I'm not justifying it, but probably that kid or whatever, he probably in the crib all day. He don't got no friends, don't talk to nobody. It's like a brainwash. Like, you feel what I'm saying? He don't got nothing else to do. He know he got a gun. He feel like he don't like what, I don't know why he don't like black people or whatever. But and you feel what I'm saying? And then on the flip side, like with our people, like we be killing each other and stuff like that. People be beefing over little things, over words and stuff. It's just a stereotyping for everybody. So I feel like it's the whole America. You feel what I'm saying? It's everybody.
Well said. Well, I love your thoughts. And just remember that Reverend Sharpton continually fights for the legislation for gun reform. And he's out here every day speaking to who he needs to. And it's going to happen one day. My last closing thoughts is we cannot sit idly by as our history is being erased. Our lives are being devalued as wokeness is being attacked. We have to stay on it. And I'm sure the National Action Network, along with Pastor Rudy McKissick, one of our board members, is going to do something with the families. And I know Reverend Sharpton will definitely be involved. But we just cannot, hate against hate. It just doesn't work. I don't know why, like the young man said, he didn't like black people. It could have been just him being in his house and being a loner. Who knows, right? So that's why it's always good to communicate with your friends, stay in touch with them. And we are the National Action Network, so I'm sure you'll hear some more action happening in Jacksonville, Florida. To all of the families, we send you our love and prayers, but it need more than that. We need legislation. So that wraps up my Did You Know?
Thank you. All right, lastly, we are going to talk briefly about the March on Washington. It's very important as we continue these discussions to continue to encourage and teach our young people our history. And so I wanted to just iterate before we share some of our reflections from this past Saturday. The young people, 5 things that you did not know about the original March on Washington. Let's see how much information you do know and learn some information if you didn't know. So the first point that I wanted to make was many of us are talking about the 60th anniversary. And of course, we know that 60 years ago at the original March on Washington, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave this speech. What was the title of his speech? Or what was the main part that we took away from his speech? He said these words, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a dream. Did you know that Martin Luther King Jr. almost didn't give that speech in the original March on Washington? He had written a completely different speech, had prepared a completely different speech to bring forth to the people the call to action as he was charged to do. And when he got up to the mic and he started to speak, the crowd really wasn't feeling Dr. King as he thought they would be. And he was struggling a little bit. Now, y'all know Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as we know, we didn't know him personally. Some people in the room may have, but I didn't know him personally. But just from reading about Dr. King and all of his teachings and things, I didn't think that Dr. King would have a problem with delivering a speech, especially on this momentous occasion, as he was charged with the call to action. But the brother was struggling a little bit when he got up there to speak, and it was Mahalia Jackson who was sitting behind him and whom he was very familiar with. They were friends. And he had this discussion previous nights before, maybe on a couple of occasions. He was talking with his group of friends, and he was talking about this dream that he had. And it was so eloquent in the way that he, told this story that Mahalia Jackson saw him struggling up there, and she said, Martin, tell him about the dream. And that woman echoed in his ear, and it changed his whole trajectory of thinking. And he started to talk about the dream. Now, I say that for two reasons. Number one, Dr. King was human. Dr. King was human. I was really intrigued to hear that. I was like, wow, this dynamic man who was, who speaks so eloquently, was struggling for words, and it was the woman behind him that had to remind him and clear his mind and get him on track. So I thought that was historic in and of itself, and I think that young people should know the woman is always the dynamic one in the back. Now, don't y'all forget about the woman. And thank you to Mahalia Jackson, who helped Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. iterate that speech, because if she had not, who knows where we would be in America today? Who knows where our people would be today if we hadn't heard about the dream? So thank you to Mahalia Jackson for reminding Dr. King about the dream. Number two, Harry Belafonte. Many of you know and heard about him, the iconic entertainer and actor, just recently passed away in his 90s, but he played a very pivotal role in the March on Washington. The late Harry Belafonte was more than just a critically acclaimed actor. He was instrumental in getting Hollywood stars, such as Marlon Brando, to come to the March on Washington. Well, why was that important? Many of y'all came to the March on Washington on Saturday, right? Clap it up. You got on a bus. You got off the bus. You got porta potties going around there. You got a huge real estate of the Lincoln Memorial. You got, security walking around making sure we were safe. We had water at our easy disposal. We had EMS tents. If you passed out from the heat, you can go get help. Well, guess what, y'all? That ain't free. They didn't just let us come up and roll up at the Lincoln Memorial and say, oh, we just going to let all of y'all come and demonstrate in peace and just going to open the door and let y'all come. It costs a lot of money for us to make this statement. And so it was very pivotal, especially 60 years ago. Think about what we have to deal with now. 60 years ago, dealing with segregation, dealing with all of this stuff that black people couldn't even, ride the front of the bus or stop at a restaurant on the way or sleep in a hotel. So think about the struggles of then. And it took the expertise and the resources from people like Harry Belafonte to say, let me pull in these big Hollywood entertainers so that they can help us to bring forth this very important message for our people. And so that was another very poignant point to know, that people like Harry Belafonte, while they weren't out front speaking like Dr. King, they were very, very pivotal and played very important roles in making sure that the March on Washington happened. Number three, the March on Washington is only half of the name. Today, we've mostly forgotten the longer title of the famous march. The event was actually called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Organizers like Dr. King were clear that racial justice and economic justice were deeply interconnected issues, as Ashley talked about, and that needed to be addressed by the civil rights movement. So when we think about the context of the March on Washington, and we constantly say the March on Washington, March on Washington, it was actually the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. So let's not forget that. Number four, very pivotal point. Want to make sure that y'all understand this. An openly gay black man organized the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Many of us are talking about many discussions as it relates to the LGBTQ rights and how, there's some controversy even talking about stemming from this in the spirit of Dr. King. As we know, Dr. King's movement was nonviolent. It was the trajectory built from the black church. And there's a lot of controversy about this conversation about why ministers and clergymen decide to speak out against, human rights as it relates to LGBTQ rights. And I want y'all to know that there was an openly black gay man who organized the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. His name was Bayard Rustin. And I want y'all young people to understand and know who he was. Because although A. Philip Randolph came up with the idea for the March on Washington, it was Bayard Rustin who put the march together. He organized, he mobilized. He was the one going across the country making sure that everybody had their marching orders, they had their pamphlets, they had their buses in order. He was the general. He was the one that put the march together. He was an openly gay civil rights leader. And so they had a meeting about this, and they was like, well, you know, Bayard can't be out in front because, you know, he's gay. So we got to put Dr. King out front. We got to put this person out front. We got to put that person out front. And so Bayard was kind of pushed to the background because of his sexual orientation, which was discrimination in and of itself. Now, we got to talk about that. But he was essential, and if it wasn't for Bayard Rustin, we would have never had a March on Washington for jobs and freedom. And the last fact I wanted to bring up was that black women were mostly excluded from the podium to speak at the March on Washington. I talked about Mahalia Jackson being able to sit on the podium. She was sitting on the stage because she was one of the only people allowed at the mic because she was singing. There was not, black women were not allowed to speak at the march. And although they were heavily involved in the planning of the march, they weren't given a lot of airtime to actually speak. According to the National Women's History Museum, male civil rights leaders declined to give women key speaking roles at the march. The absence of women at the original march was noted by one of the speakers this year, many of the speakers this year, but I think that this year also showed the dynamic of the fight that we have accomplished a lot, even within ourselves and our own culture and community, to be able to elevate and vocalize women and women in leadership roles, and being very prominent on the stage for the March on Washington. We saw so many dynamic women speaking, one of which I mentioned is here in the room, Ashley Sharpton, who delivered a powerful speech on behalf of Youth Huddle, and many other women who took to the mic to make a call to action on that day. So I just want y'all to know some information. Those are some little unknown facts. They're known if you have studied history and, of course, the trajectory of the civil rights movement. But for young people, y'all not going to really know this because you're not going to be taught this in school. And so we want to make sure that while we're having these discussions and we're going out and doing these actions, we also know the history of how these things were formulated and how they came in to pass before us, so that we can understand how to move it forward. So with that said, if you have some thoughts or reflections to share on your experience on the March on Washington 60, please come up at this time. We know the hour is late, but we want to make sure that we do hear some reflections of those who want to share on their personal experience this past weekend on attending the March on Washington.
So I just want to say that I had an awesome time because I was never a part of something so great. And I loved it. I loved it. I really loved it. To say that I was there, that I was standing up for my people, and that I was a part of history. And it was a pleasant thing for me, you know? And I'm just happy that I was able to come with the National Action Network and be a part of this organization so that I could do actions towards making things better for humanity in itself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I was fortunate enough to be front and center, like really front and center, standing next to Dominique. So I just want to thank Dominique Sharpton and Ashley Sharpton. Y'all don't know the trials and tribulations Dominique was going through to have everything just going smoothly. Like, she was working, pushed over, all of that. I almost had to yell at the escorts for her because I was getting mad for her. I was like, listen, no more. And Ash, staying on top of our media, she was sweating like crazy. I had to go get her Dominique's bag of ice because it was Dominique's first. you know, it was just great because, you know, they're talking about how women weren't included in things, and they were the behind the scenes, like they were everything for the march. Even Patrice coming, there was so many people here. Patrice just making sure her people got it together, helping everybody out. Everybody that was here got on the bus because of Patrice, because of Gina, because of everybody who was helping. So that, besides everything else that was so great, I saw greatness in our Black woman leadership here. And that was the best part to me, just watching Dominique work, because I know that she is teaching me something that I can't get from another place. Ashley is teaching me something now, currently, still teaching me things that I probably can't get from nobody else. Patrice teaching me great leadership, how to hold your composure when it comes to rude people. Auntie Gina, you know, always helping me out, always sending me things. So it was just, besides all the greatness that happened that day, I was extremely happy to be around these great women, these great Black women who was doing so much behind the scenes, and they came up, they was in the forefront, doing what they needed to do to make sure everything ran smoothly. So if you had a blast on August 26th, it's because of these women right here.
Thank you.
Blessings to all. You done stole my story. But yeah, I'm going to repeat it anyways. Can we put our hands together for Patrice? Can we put our hands together for Patrice? Let's put our hands together for the whole organization. They were working hard. They were sweating. I have no idea what went into that, but it was a lot. A lot of you know me, but my grandfather in the 60s organized buses out of Nassau County to the march on Washington, the first one. And thank you. So growing up hearing that story, I never thought I would get the opportunity to organize buses here at the Harlem House of Justice, and I was called to help out. But it was just such a blessing to be a part of the movement. It was my first march. Yeah, it was my first one to Washington. And the experience of a lifetime. I know I bothered Kathy the whole ride. I'm sorry, Kathy. You seriously beat me up? We had a situation where it was almost like the book of Exodus. Flies were coming out, we were rebuking. But we got there safely, we had a blast, and more importantly, it's a memory for a lifetime. God bless you.
God bless. Thank you for sharing. We're going to have Mr. Waters be the last comment.
Hi. So, yes, the march was beautiful, but preparing and to be here and to actually be instrumental with the registration for the buses, and then to be honored by being a bus captain was amazing. And to sit in the presence of Audrey Smarts and her wife Gail on the bus, and they had went to the first march there with Dr. King, and for Mama Cat to let us just listen to their stories, and I was just like right there, like I felt like I was Dominique and Ashley combined. I was like, oh, this is so amazing, because like where else could this happen at but through National Action Network? And I'm gonna tell you, everything was just so beautiful. The people on the bus ride going, everybody very respectful. When we got there, everybody was great. We had an awesome bus driver who's also a member of National Action Network, right? And I do want to say my son Gino was having his entrepreneurial experience by selling shirts, and bags, which he was amazing at. And my niece Giselle came right up to the forefront, as I knew she would. I wanted to be a little bit closer to them to get closer pictures, because I was way in the back, and we were helping people and with waters and food, whatever they needed. And it was just, the whole thing was just amazing. I do want to say this because I know no other bus did this like we did it, the Huddle bus. But we came up with a donation of $281, and Corey Wise gave the $200. So kudos to Corey for that. And it was just good. So, yeah, and I look forward to next year, since I know what to do, right? And I will do it well because I'm competitive too. But this is an awesome NAN family, and I just want to say we have to keep working together to fight for so many different things. And right now, education and affirmative action is at the highest heights, and women's rights. And we have to not only start with the college students and the high school students, but we have to start with middle schoolers, because if we don't start educating our youth right now, everything that we're trying to fight for and push that we can keep a grasp on to elevate to greatness, it will just deteriorate. So we must start very, very early. All right, thank you.
Come on, young lady.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep this short because I'm aware of the time, but my experience with this March on Washington, it was very great. I was very happy to see that there were young people like me speaking. It reminded me that you don't have to be an adult to make the change. You can be a youth and still make changes. It makes me very happy when I see women doing this, because there are people that say that women are supposed to stay quiet because they say it's biblical. But when I see these women stand up and speak against the racism, it reminds me that it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter what race you are, you can make a change because you have a voice. And it was also a good experience because it was like I was in the 1960s. I don't know, I just felt that way. Like Martin Luther King was there. It was just great, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Okay, my experience was super great. I had a chance to do something that I never did before. Go up to the Washington Monument. I was actually I was searching to get to the front to the Lincoln Monument, but I wind up getting at the Washington Monument before I got to the Lincoln Monument. So I had a chance to actually touch the building and take a couple of pictures. So to me, that was fantastic, because as many times as I've been to Washington, I only seen that, through the bus window. I never went up to it as close as I was today. Now, what y'all don't know, that only 66 people could go up there per day. And you have to get your tickets off the line. They don't sell them off there. Now, as a disabled person in a wheelchair, I had came and a couple of people had stopped me and said, right on, you came to the march and you're disabled in a wheelchair. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And one guy even said, if you want a free phone, we giving out free phone, because if you took the time to come all the way to this march, you deserve a phone. So, no, he gave me his card and told me to call him and he would give it to me. But I'm saying, a lot of times, just because you're disabled or in a wheelchair, they don't think you're going to show up. But we protest for rights just like everybody else. The only difference, we need somebody that's going to be with us to take us there in that situation. If not, and some people drive in the situation, they drive themselves and everything, but we protest just like everybody else, and we stand up just like everybody else. The only difference is that we sit down, but we protest. All right, so when we get ready to have a protest, I'm right there with everybody else.
All right, Sister Word, close us out, please. People hungry.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to keep it short, but I have a lot I could say. But the one thing that I was experiencing just by being there and watching the people who did attend, and it was people of all abilities, colors, with relevant issues where their signs displayed trans rights, equal equality, housing, with so many different people up there with their own particular issues, but they knew we needed to be there together. So what I really kept in mind continually is that this 2023, we are down or up in history because of our attendance and what we did in 2023. The Raven talks about someone doing a split screen to show the difference in how National Action Network and every partner with National Action Network participates in unity and peace, but all for the good of everybody, even the people who were the insurrectionists. We are for all people having equality in a peaceful manner. And we approach Washington, D.C. with the utmost respect. And that was just a beautiful thing in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. I have to say something. Sorry, Dominique. So the March on Washington, and I started off with it, and I might fumble up because I don't want to get emotional, but I just feel like some of you may have went because you had nowhere else to go. Some of you might have went because it was an event with NAN. Some of you might have went, we said it was a continuation, but some of you might have went to commemorate it, just out of the history of it, or just, to say I went to the March on Washington. And some of you might have understood the moment that we are in. So I just wanted to say it doesn't matter, there's no right or wrong why you went. You were there, you were present, and it matters, it counts. Even if you didn't go and you watched online or you shared something, that counts because you are aware of the moment that we are in, the moment of the times that we are in. Politically, and I might lose some of y'all, but I'm gonna go. Politically, where we are, we just saw Trump, Rudy Giuliani, right? Booked. Well, not booked, but basically we saw their mugshots. They just got in trouble for basically what they did. And I don't know if they served time, but they did. We are in a position as far as the civil rights movement for those who enjoy history or study history, right? For those who talked about Good Trouble Gang, I don't know if you understand that John Lewis is the person who, that's where that stems from. John Lewis was the youngest at the march, as far as SNCC with Dr. Martin Luther King, right? So as far as us, we would have been the John Lewis generation of the march, or y'all would have been, I'm a little older than John Lewis. I'm 35, but as far as Usman Falivi, Dan, Giselle, young Gino is younger, but you guys had that responsibility as far as organizing young people. I will say Usman and Falivi they had to argue with people and face friction. What is the policy agenda and why are we doing this? And we think marching is outdated. They had to take those students on, and all of us did. We all were on the cause, and people were asking and challenging us and why is this important. We saw Diddy and Earn Your Leisure have on the same day a financial empowerment conference online, which some people felt was disrespectful because why would you do that on the same day as the March on Washington? Then we saw Spike Lee in Brooklyn have something at the same time at the end of the day. So it seemed like we were all split, in my opinion. But if we're supposed to be fighting for the same things, we should all have been convening on the same action. But that's just my opinion. It's a different time, different age. But what I'm saying is basically there's a call to some of us, right? And I think Rev hit some of it. He hit some of it. And we're 9 years in. Tree said that in the beginning. I think that sparked this for me. 10 years will be this December, right? 10 years ago was the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. So Winston, a few of y'all were here. Lisa, Dominique, a few members were here. Arnold, 10 years ago when we did the 50th anniversary. It was a different setting in the movement. It was a different time. Black Lives Matter had not even pitched yet. It had not even become a hashtag or a movement. We were literally, I don't think, no, it didn't. George Floyd, none of that had happened. It was Trayvon Martin. It was that time. And basically, it was a different time. They were telling Reverend Sharpton to sit down. They were telling basically the different, John Lewis, everybody was too old, basically. It was a different time in politics. Trump was not a thought. Think about it. I'm serious. Obama, all of that. We were all in, it was a different time. And the 50th anniversary in Washington, I don't think we could have imagined that we'd have been here for the 60th anniversary in Washington, organizing seriously as for the attacks that we're facing as a country. The movement was split. It split maybe 7, 8 years ago. We can acknowledge it or not. But there is a calling for those under this banner, as far as the National Action Network. 10 years ago, if you knew me, I would have been up here fumbling, hiding behind Dominique Trees. Whoever wanted the mic, I'd have let him have it. Whatever. Because I didn't know my purpose. I didn't know what I was here for. I didn't even care, honestly. I just wanted to go have fun and hide and be Ashley. But at the end of the day, there's a calling. There was a knack that kept calling me, no matter how smacked I ever got, no matter how far I ever traveled, that kept calling me back here. There was a calling that kept calling me back to Huddle. Even Mondays, I didn't want to come do this. Even sometimes, none of us wanted to come do this. There was a reason. And it all made sense to me on Saturday. When I saw Usman, and I keep saying it, and I know you're like, oh, she keeps saying the same thing, but y'all don't understand what that journey looked like. And where Falivi and Usman, we found Falivi in, okay, sorry. We found Falivi in the pandemic online. That young man stayed with us online every Monday until he started coming and Huddle every Monday in person. He then found his friends. They brought their friends here every Monday and believed in the dream that I started. He didn't have to believe in it because I'm not the nicest or the most easiest person to deal with because I go through my own things. But despite that, he continued to come because he believed in it. Patrice continued to come because they believed in it. Dominique continued to come because they believed in it. All of y'all can say what y'all want to say, but they were there. They saw it every week. They saw our struggles that we went through. My mother made sure if we had the 120 for the food or not, we was fed every Monday. Arnold Penix was here every week to provide us some kind of humor, some kind of lightness, some kind of entertainment so that it wouldn't be so heavy every time we talked about what happened outside the doors. You don't understand what you're coming to. I did not understand what I was creating, but we kept going. And 9 years later, young people got a chance to stay on the same platform as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, and feel as their words were just as important. Their thoughts were just as important as the leaders that we see every day. That might not mean nothing for you, but it meant something for me. Because I never thought that anything that I could say would ever matter. I don't care how many times we huddle up. I didn't think that it would matter enough or make sense enough to ever be on a platform as that. But to see Reverend Sharpton, Jamal Bryant, to see Andrew Young, to see people that paved the way for us, and then to understand that they gave us the space to say, what do y'all have to say? We want to hear y'all. What are your thoughts? Lead us. If that don't challenge y'all to do better, I don't know what will. I'm not just because I'm Al Sharpton's daughter that I'm up here. I'm up here because somebody believed in me. And y'all believed in me and y'all followed me. And if y'all crazy if that don't activate something in you to get up and keep going and do something positive for yourself. If you don't ever come back to Huddle, learn that you can do something if you believe in yourself. The only person that ever limited me was Ashley. I was the only person that said you mumble too much. Nobody wants to see you. You're too big. Nobody wants to see you. But you keep going. God gave me a gift, and He gave me a vision, and keep going. People will believe in you. People will follow you. I promise you. There's this fight ahead, and I know I got personal, but this fight ahead of all of us, black people, minorities, it will not be easy, but you need a community to build with. You need a community to learn from, and you need a community to challenge you. Stay in that community. I urge you to stay with the National Action Network because and I'm going to say this and I'm going to sit down. Esther 1:14, for we have come such a time as this. I believe in the Esther Brigade, and I'm going to do something with that, but there's an Esther Brigade that I think that every single person has come for such a time as this. Reverend Sharpton will be 70 soon. What will the next generation of National Action Network mean? What will we stand for? Who will those leaders be? It's not Sharpton. This is not Sharpton Network. This is the National Action Network. So whoever's about that action, this place is for you. So we need leaders. We need an agenda, and we need you to step up to the plate. The time is now. If y'all never saw the time, I'm telling you, it's now. It's time for you to do what you were called to do, and this is ample playing field for you to do it. Reverend Sharpton has set the standard. NAN is at a beacon. It's time for us to go forward. Thank y'all.